All right, the Reds, it's the second look. We're having a second look at Liverpool's draw with Man City at Anfield, a draw that has left Liverpool, City and Chelsea all tied on the same points at the top of the Premier League going into the international break. So as far as I'm concerned, that's all right, isn't it? And yet, as usual, there's loads of people moaning and going on about things that are wrong with Liverpool when I reckon loads is all right. But let's see if Mel, Reddy and Paul Cope think loads are right as well. As ever on the second look, going to kick off by being a stats nonce and hit you with a load of stats. The basics then, Liverpool have 49% possession to City's 51, which is their lowest ever under Guardiola since he took over at Manchester City in Premier League games. They also had 6 shots to Liverpool's 7. That's the lowest total in a Premier League game this season. Also, Liverpool didn't have a shot on target in the first half of a Premier League game for the first time since November 2017. So probably that just backs up everything you saw with your actual eyes when you watched it the first time, in that it was a really tight game. There was a lot of respect between the two sides. Both sides, it seemed, didn't really want to get beat and maybe favoured that over trying to win the thing. But in general, I mean, let's just start off in general, what you thought of it, because we did do a post-match pint. Lots of people are asking, but we had some technical difficulties, and I'm afraid that is now the Anfield Rap's White Album that you will never, ever get to listen to, one of them. Sorry, apologies. So let's do general thoughts first, then Mel, general thoughts on the game.
I thought both managers were very clever in their pre-match build up to the game, because they both spoke about attacking football and made the other think that it was going to be one of those chaotic, open games where both planned differently. Pep Guardiola called it title defenders against title contenders, and the way they played told me that that's exactly what both teams thought it was, because neither dared lose that fixture. It was the worst thing in the world was if they lost it. And you could see that in how they played. I thought out of possession, both teams were unreal in the amount of discipline, willpower, just concentration, everything that you have to take to stop a team like Manchester City and a team like Liverpool from being able to create is just astounding. And my biggest takeaway from the game was that Manchester City look at this Liverpool side and think, we cannot afford to lose points to them because this is going to be a tight title race and we can't, give them any advantages whatsoever. I think that was the big difference between games this season and last season. Last season, City could afford to drop points against us, so it was usually expansive. So it wasn't just about their poor record at Anfield, I think, for Guardiola in terms of him altering his game plan. I think it was not being able to afford to lose at Anfield this time, because this season is going to be very tense.
I think both managers backed up what Mel's saying there, and that they both sort of reference Kobe that you've got to, in these games, respect what the other team's got, but respect what they're about. Both managers very respectful afterwards in terms of the words as well, particularly Guardiola towards Liverpool, and talking about, you got 1% chance if you play a certain way against Liverpool. In other words, open, basically saying that Liverpool are, the best in the world almost at getting you that way.
Yeah.
What did you make of it?
I think that's one of the most interesting things, and Mel's just said there, and it's funny actually you reference in the intro about Liverpool fans and what we think. Pep Guardiola thinks we're the second best team in this league at the very least. He sees us as a really serious football team now. And even when he's saying stuff, I mean, everyone's seen the clips from the documentary of him talking about us in the middle of other games, where that's how much we're on his mind. Yeah. And the way he's changed the entire setup of that team, he's done something there that even in sort of the build-up I was talking about, that I just didn't think he would ever do. I'd never think... I mean, he was sort of infamously, maybe famously saying in his first season, I won't change. I'm not going to take any backward steps. This league will change to the way I am, not the other way around. Well, that was a Pep Guardiola change in there. And you could see even in the reactions afterwards. And the interview with John Stones was really interesting as well. They were really pleased with themselves.
Yeah.
Really pleased.
Despite having a chance to win the game, 86-minute penalty, they still walked off that pitch and they were happy that they got a point at Anfield. They were happy that they kept a clean sheet there. And I need to put this into context. They were not playing Liverpool's front three in an explosive, on-form, blitz mood. They knew that Liverpool's front three had been shattered from a very hectic schedule, very tough period. And yet they still thought, you know what, we still can't take that risk. We can't take the chance that this is the game where Liverpool's transition is off the charts and their front line click, because if they click in this game and they carry it on, there's going to be problems. And I thought that level of respect they showed, given the fact that Liverpool were not as fresh as them and have not had a schedule that's as amenable as they've had, told you everything that you need. And I think you've made an excellent point, because I was thinking the exact same thing. How are supporters looking at Liverpool being on 20 points, same as City and Chelsea, after when you look at respective schedules, and watch the way Guardiola has set up the team that scored 100 points last season and over a century of goals, come to Anfield and play like that he never does. The only manager Guardiola ever sacrifices his football principles for or alters it is Jurgen Klopp. He did it at Bayern Munich and he's done it now.
Yeah, he's done it twice. That's what I was going to reference what you said there, Kopi. He's done it twice when he was at Bayern. Raphael Honigstein wrote a piece at the end of last week saying that, you know, Klopp had twice, against Klopp teams, he'd twice before. So it's because there's a quote from him: "Success without playing the way you like to play means nothing to me." But then, so if that's what your principle is, to change, it's massive, isn't it? Because, you know, if that's what you're all about, best manager in the world, you know, fella rocking around who most people think's cool and all the rest of it, and if he's got to go...
I keep referencing, lately, sorry to cut you off, I keep referencing Kryptonite. And in the clips I've seen of him on that documentary and his whole body language about us, and it's actually, in fairness, it's not about Liverpool, it's about Klopp. Because, as you say, he's done this at Munich. And when he was talking about Klopp as a manager and Klopp's teams, and he's referenced this in post-match about we're the best in the world at this. And he knows now that Klopp has got everything he had at Dortmund, and now he's harnessing the power of Anfield behind that and these lunatics that we have to come and play against in the ground. And it says everything, that he's willing to compromise on everything just for that, just to get that clean sheet. And in fairness to him, because we can criticise for that, or we can obviously take positives from it. But in fairness to him, they did it really well.
Yeah,
I actually didn't think they were capable of it. They did it really well.
They were brilliant. And I thought that was staggering about them, that a team so talented and so technical, when they have the ball, can prioritise what they do without the ball. And in fact, in the first 10 minutes, Pep was going absolutely mental because Kyle Walker was bombing on, and he said to him, "Stop that. I don't want to see you do that again. You stay. Defense is your first port of call in this game." And there was a few times where when City had the ball, he was calm. When City didn't have the ball, he'd get on them and he'd be like, close, and so they slowed the game down after the first 10 minutes and then controlled the tempo. And he was happy with that. But I thought it was an awful game for all of the forwards. Aguero, Mahrez, Firmino, Salah Mane. And it was a game for I thought the central defenders were outstanding, all of them.
Well, Guardiola after the game did say, "I'm so comfortable with the performance. They didn't have one shot on target."
That too.
Not strictly true, mate. Doing that in Anfield, that's so complicated. That is why I have so much credit for what we've done. Okay, we miss a bit in front, a little bit more creativity and pace to finish the action, but it's not easy because they are so strong and good. So let's listen to the fella. I think we're strong and good as well. Anyway, here's Neil Atkinson with a look at the tactics.
A serious game of football, two serious sides. And Liverpool might have expected Manchester City to line up maybe a little bit like this when they saw the team sheet, just maybe. But Pep Guardiola wanted one extra man in there. He wanted one extra midfielder. He had Mahrez and he had Sterling working really, really hard for him. Didn't start Sane, he wanted the sub. But you can see it was a proper two. Fernandinho and Bernardo Silva on the average positions are just quite consistently right next to each other. It wasn't Fernandinho on his own, with those being encouraged to play, as I expected. It was very much this. These two sat back there and looked to block Liverpool wherever possible. The other thing that we got to saw as well, there's Salah, there's Firmino, and there's Mane a little bit deeper, these lads up here. The other thing that we got to see a little bit of as well from Manchester City, which they'll be really, really pleased with, is Kyle Walker as the right-sided centre-back, almost more than full-back. He never really left his defensive line. Mendy had a little bit of licence to go and play maybe a little bit more. Laporte then comes across one, Stones comes across one, and there's the two of them in there as well, quite consistently looking to get around Mane. It meant that we never really saw that much of Robertson during the game. Mahrez occasionally pulled him back. And it was first half all the way through. A lot of the play was compressed, not dissimilar to this. And Joe Gomez was in oceans of space, and Liverpool weren't using him. Second half, Klopp clearly had a word. Liverpool went to Gomez more often. And late in the game, we saw him and Sané coming down the flank there, trying to stop each other from getting going and playing. But all over the pitch, you could see it was about cancelling each other out. It was about the man on the ball looking up and not necessarily being able to see what he needs to see around him and end up having to give it a little bit safe or look to clip one over the top in the case of Henderson, who looked for that on 3 or 4 occasions as the game wore on. It was a real victory for Guardiola in one sense. He's looked his players in the eyes and he's gone, this is what we need to do, lads. And they've trusted him wholeheartedly. They've committed completely to his strategy and to his plan. They probably would have done that against us in the Champions League game, but we scored the early goal and Gundogan really struggles on the day. It's one of the things that happens if you're a football manager. You can have the right plan, but it cannot come off. Was that the right plan that day? Well, we'll never properly know. But for this game, Guardiola can know that, given the right opposition, given the idea of a side that can really get at Manchester City, he can set his players up, and I'm including flair players like Bernardo Silva, David Silva, and he can say, this is the job I need you to do. This is how hard I need you to make it for them. And he can know that they'll look back and they'll give him everything that they've got, including an unbelievable amount of mental discipline. Fair play to Manchester City. They got the point that they came for. They were a penalty away from making it all 3. But fair play to Liverpool as well. Wijnaldum and Henderson did lots of sensible things in the middle of the park. And yes, it never became a free-flowing game of football, but Liverpool got the points they needed in order to stay level on points at the top of the Premier League.
Big thanks to Neil, as ever. In the second half then, I just wanted to look at what Liverpool have done so far. I think it needs to be put into a bit of context. And the context I'm going to put it into is, well, what City and Chelsea have been doing, because obviously we're tied at the top of the league, aren't we? So Liverpool, as you know, 4-0 against West Ham, 2-0 against Crystal Palace, beat Brighton 1-0, beat Leicester away, beat Spurs away, beat PSG 3-2 at home. Southampton was a nice easy one, 3-0. Lost to Chelsea in the League Cup, drew at Chelsea in the Premier League, lost to Napoli in the last minute, obviously in the Champions League, and then Man City. City kicked off the season against Arsenal. They then played Huddersfield, beat them 6-1, drew with Wolves, beat Newcastle 2-1, beat Fulham 3-0, lost to Lyon, who aren't as good as PSG, let's be honest. Battered Cardiff away. Had a nice, easy game against Oxford in the League Cup, beat Brighton, beat Hoffenheim, drew with Liverpool. Chelsea kicked off the season against Huddersfield. Then they played Arsenal, they played Newcastle, they played Bournemouth, they played Cardiff, they played some no-marks in Europe, they played West Ham, they played us. They played us again. They played some more no-marks in Europe, and then they played Southampton. My point is that we've had a really, really difficult start. We've had we had what the papers kept calling the nightmare run, and I kept taking the piss out of it. But I mean, there was an article today which is worth a read, because some of it is free and it is a subscription site in general. But Paul Tompkins has made some of it free. And I liked some of the points he made, to be honest. So what he said, we've played 3 different opponents already this season who finished with over 90 points in their leagues. Plus the 2 games against Chelsea who finished with over 90 points in 2017. Plus we went to Spurs. Plus we're the only Big Six side to face 3 Big Six matches so far. I mean, all this is a point worth making, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've done really well.
And that's even before you count the fact that Selhurst Park is not a fun place to go to, and neither is going to Leicester, as Liverpool have found out in previous seasons. So it is, I think, bar Southampton at home, it has been quite arduous, because Brighton came to be obstructive, which they nearly succeeded in doing. But even that was, it was a game to endure rather than to enjoy, and Liverpool did it well. I think it's been very impressive. Our foundation, the partnership between Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez has been outstanding. Alisson he's been an absolute game changer at the back. Even, people were angry that Lovren started as centre-back yesterday, but he was
great.
I think he won 73% of 11 duels against the best team in the country, which is staggering. It's really, really good going. But yeah, that platform and the midfield has shown a lot of steel. I agree, it needs creativity. It's missing Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, but we've also played two of the best midfields in the country in Chelsea and Manchester City. And for all the nagging doubts in the back of your mind where you think the midfield is not that good or can't compete, I mean, it's shown in those games that it actually can. But yeah, I would say need more dynamism. And then obviously we all know that the front three haven't clicked yet. But I will say last season, the first time you really looked at them and thought, holy hell, was 17th of October against Maribor in the Champions League, where and then you thought, okay, it's only Maribor. And then from there, they just continued it. So I think when they do start firing, that it will all come together. But the fact that they've not yet settled, but Liverpool have looked this strong in the context of those fixtures, it's just good to get the international break, get them refreshed, hopefully no injuries. And, with the easier period to come, I think we'll see a lot more rotation from Klopp.
Gives it the opportunity to do so, doesn't it? Because of the level of the opposition. That's the thing. I mean, that's the point that needs to be made, isn't it? Because when I just read out a list like that, it's not just, oh, look, they've been luckier with their fixture list. If you're playing teams that aren't as good, basically, like Mel says, it gives you that opportunity to rotate a bit more. People have been a little bit surprised that he hasn't rotated more, but it's the quality of the opposition, isn't it? It's like, well, if it rotates even a little bit, it gives them an opportunity.
Yeah, something I was saying about the team he picked yesterday, everyone always focuses on what they can see, I think, and not what they can't see. And I think what that team selection said more about was what he thinks of the likes of Klein and Shaqiri. And it's understandable because he's going with, Sean always says on the review, there's a Guardiola line about I hope, I think, I know. And he's going with lads who he knows what they can do in these types of performances. And what we've all got to bear in mind is the other thing that what we all tend to do is people are comparing what we are now to what we were at the end of last season. We're comparing Mo Salah now to what he was at the end of last season, not what they were at the start of last season. Yeah. And you're even seeing this again, no matter how many times we go through this, you still see people doing it. So Keita is already under the microscope. He's only just signed for us. Yeah. This, if you go back to the start of last season with Robertson, with Oxlade-Chamberlain, with the front three, with Salah, we weren't the team firing all cylinders that we became as the season progressed.
Klopp's teams always progress. Historically, Mainz, Dortmund, it's always, they, after a hectic period, they find their gears. So
I think the most important thing about that as well, which I think this is the interesting thing, I think all the coaches, Klopp, Guardiola, Carragher even mentioned this on TV, what they'll all be focusing on is the points we've got, the position we're in, and it's without the front three firing. Yeah. It's without the dynamic midfielder, because this time, this performance at this stage is built on a solid defence. And that's why if you're Guardiola worrying about it, you're thinking, I know what they were like last year, and they didn't have this defence and this goalkeeper. Yeah. So if and when they can click into gear going forward, that's something to be excited about in the coming weeks and months.
And it's the best start from Liverpool in terms of points in a decade. Also, Liverpool, they've extended their run of clean sheets in the Premier League to 9 matches, during which they've only faced 13 shots on target. So all this idea that they can get better and better and better. Again, we've got 20 points on the board. Yeah. We're joint top of the league. We've had a really tough start, and traditionally they get better and better and better. I mean, to just look at last season as well, after 8 games, Liverpool had 13 points. They've beaten Palace, Arsenal and Leicester. They drew with Watford, Burnley, Newcastle and Man United. And they've been battered at Man City. So again, look, maybe we should maybe we should just ban social media or something, but it is disheartening in a way, isn't it, that, all this information's available for everyone, and you can see what you can see, and then you can sit at home and look at it and dissect it again, and yet still there's people just going, finding something to moan about. It's come on, really, because we're better as a force when we're all behind it and there's momentum and we're all happy. And I just think it's shit when people say things like, oh, well, they haven't won in 4 though, have they? And it's we went out the League Cup when we changed 8 positions, 8 players. We drew at Chelsea, which was a good result away from home, and the manner of it was great. And then we lost in the last minute against Napoli. And now we've drew with the champions who got 100 points last season. So just going, we haven't won in 4. It's not really the context of the situation, is it?
Yeah. Negativity doesn't help, especially when you saw Sarri. His team concedes a late goal and he's smiling at the end of the whistle because he's also happy to have just secured a point against Liverpool at home. These managers and these teams are aware of how difficult it is at the top. And if you're looking at Manchester City's trip to Liverpool yesterday, if you watch that game, and if you do not draw the conclusion of what Guardiola thinks of the side, and the point about the defense is a great one, because I think he was paranoid that if Liverpool score 1, City wouldn't have been able to score because Liverpool are so much better in defense. And he actually referenced that pre-match, that if they wanted to win the game at Anfield, they would have scored. That Liverpool were fortunate in the end because Mahrez skies his penalty, but just the approach and even the Chelsea game, the reaction at the end of the game from Sarri, all these things are fitting together. And when I look at it, I'm thinking Liverpool are really, really, really highly rated by their peers in this league, and people know that Liverpool are a more serious side now. And I think there's also an apprehension about what's still to come from Liverpool because they're not operating yet at optimum. And they are in this position. And just like we've sat here and we know Klopp's teams historically get better, I can guarantee you Guardiola knows that. I can guarantee you Sarri knows that, Emery, Pochettino, everyone. And for Liverpool to have this close, I think Klopp said something like, if you told me, if somebody said before seeing any of the fixture lists, you'll have 20 points out of 24, I'd have taken it. If somebody showed me the fixture list and then said, you'll get that, I'd have actually paid for it and said, okay, let's start from the 9th game. So Liverpool are in a really, really healthy position. And I don't think we need to be blind to their faults. No, I don't think, we all accept we could do with a lot more dynamism. We could do with the front 3 clicking sooner rather than later, and having more from Naby Keita and seeing more of Shaqiri and all those things, and Fabinho. But right now, as we sit here, Liverpool, with all the improvement they need to do, are joint top of the league.
And is there anything to fear from the teams we're up against? Because we've seen them.
No, I think this is a really interesting point on how the fans react. There's a fine balance in this, as there is in most things in life that I like to talk about. It's important we've got a swagger. I've talked about this in the past. If you want to win the league, you've got to have a swagger about you, about the club, about the fans. You've got to believe you can win the league. But I think with lots of Liverpool supporters at times, it goes over too far into arrogance. So we'll play the likes of Napoli away and we expect to turn up and win 4-0.
Yeah.
This is a really serious football team that got over 90 points in Italy. And this dates right back. I remember this under Benitez. I remember after we'd won the Champions League, I think we drew at home to Lyon, and there were grumblings of boos in the crowd because we hadn't beaten the champions of France. And I think it's something that people really need to get over, that when we're playing the likes of Chelsea, as Mel's saying there about Sarri, him and Guardiola know how good we are. They respect each other. The hugs and all the kisses at the end, I was saying it felt a bit uncomfortable, that to me. It doesn't feel right with Chelsea that we're all being best mates at the end of a match. But he knows that. He respects it. Klopp respects them. And I think there's still that element of some Liverpool supporters where we don't respect the opposition enough. We don't give them enough credit, because when we don't get the result we want, we focus on us and our shortcomings, and not saying City. I mean, City's the easiest one to say they're brilliant. I think it's worth us going back to what we said before and saying they were actually defensively brilliant as well, which people aren't used to happening. So, I mean, going back to last week, I remember saying to get beat 1-0 by Napoli away is not a disgrace. We've only conceded 1 goal going away over there. So, yeah, there's nothing for us to fear in the opposition we're up against, but there is a lot to respect, and I think it's important we do that.
Absolutely. Okay, there you go. That's been the second look. There's going to be lots more out there if you'd like more from that match against Manchester City. So there is a review being recorded next door right now as it happens. So you can listen to that if you subscribe to our podcast. There's a free show if you don't yet subscribe to our podcast. So you can have that as a bit of a taster and then maybe think about paying the £5 a month for Tour Player. So get on all that. That's all on our website, theanfieldapp.com. Loads of writing on there as well. Loads more video to come here on YouTube. That's been the second look.